Okay, let's unpack this deep dive. We're looking at excerpts from a story called Grandpa's Magical Garden Shoes.
Yeah, Grandpa's magical garden shoes. Sounds pretty whimsical, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
But, sometimes the most surprising nuggets of insight aren't buried in dense research.
Exactly. Sometimes they're right there, maybe in a children's story about some old muddy shoes.
So this story, it's about Grandpa Gus and these garden shoes he's had forever. Super old, caked in mud.
But the source says they weren't just dirty, they actually, absorbed years of garden magic.
Garden magic? What does that even mean here?
Well, the text mentions things like sunshine, rain, even worm wings.
Worm wings, okay.
And fairy dust from flower gnomes, apparently. It's this idea that magic isn't just some sudden poof.
Right, it accumulates, like from just being in the garden day after day.
Precisely. Years of dirt, sun, maybe talking to the plants. The shoes just soaked it all up. It's magic built over time and something totally ordinary.
And then the effect. Wow. So Grandpa Gus pulls them on one morning.
And they don't just help him walk, oh no.
The source says they zipped him around the garden like a bumblebee who'd had way too much coffee.
Can you picture that? Trying to weed at bumblebee speed.
It sounds stressful, but also kind of amazing.
Yeah, it turns gardening into this high-speed, almost chaotic dance. The shoes had their own ideas, too.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Like watering plants with timed hops, digging holes with little toe taps.
Seriously?
And apparently scaring off squirrels with jazz moves.
Jazz moves. Okay, these are some talented shoes.
It's this focused, magical chaos. And then there's Maya, his granddaughter.
Right, Maya. She's watching all this happen.
Yeah, running alongside, laughing, probably a bit bewildered by Grandpa suddenly becoming a garden blur.
Her reaction sort of grounds it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Shows how weird and wonderful this sudden magic looks from the outside.
It really does. It highlights that feeling when something totally unexpected happens.
So we've got Grandpa zooming, Maya chasing. What's the surprising insight here for you listening? What can we actually pull from this?
Good question. Let's dig in. The magic starts in these old, muddy shoes, transformed by years of garden life, not some instant spell.
Suggesting maybe that real magic or deep value comes from that consistent, patient interaction with something, like history matters.
Exactly. Value built slowly, inside the most ordinary thing, the extraordinary emerging from the everyday.
That's a cool thought. But what about that detail? The shoes only worked for Grandpa Gus. They liked old knees and big heartbeats, the source says.
Yeah, that's intriguing, isn't it? The story doesn't fully spell it out.
So we have to kind of interpret it. Old knees. Maybe that means experience, resilience.
Could be. And big heartbeats. Maybe passion, joy, a real connection to the garden itself.
So the magic wasn't just in the shoes. It needed him, his history, his heart.
Seems like it, like a specific kind of person unlocked their potential.
Okay, and Maya. The shoes don't work for her. She doesn't get that inherited magic.
Right, but she doesn't just give up. And this is key.
What does she do?
She uses her own creativity. The source says she decorates her normal sneakers, glitter, googly eyes, daisy petals.
Ah, so she makes her own version of special shoes.
Exactly. Which brings up another big insight, I think. When you can't access that source of power or maybe that specific magic.
Your own creativity can step in, make something different, but just as effective in its own way.
Precisely. Limitations sparking innovation. It's a different kind of magic she creates.
And then they team up. Grandpa in his zippy magic shoes, Maya in her glittery creative shoes.
And together, the story says, they became the fastest gardening team ever.
So it wasn't magic versus creativity.
No, it was the combination, magic and creativity working together.
Which really underlines the lessons the story seems to be hinting at.
Yeah, like gardening or any task really is more fun when you share it, when you bring imagination to it.
And that magic or wonder can be found all around us. In nature, old stuff.
But also, importantly, inside us, in our own imagination and creativity. That's powerful too.
So the big takeaway maybe is that ordinary things, routines, tools, places might just be waiting to bloom.
Yeah, maybe it takes time, a certain way of looking.
And maybe a dash of your own creative spark, especially if you team up with someone.
It's a lovely reminder, really. Adventure isn't always somewhere else. Sometimes it's right there, in the mundane.
Looking at those old shoes by the door and thinking, what could happen here?
What unexpected magic is waiting?
So this story really shows us even everyday stuff can hold surprising joy if you approach it right. Add some creativity, share it.
And things can become pretty magical.
So the question for you this week is, Where might you find your own bit of magic or adventure in something ordinary?